Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be looking at the support tier list for 1410. So as always, if you enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really helps out a ton on the channel. Check out the rest of the content as well. I am going to try to do some tier lists for most of the other roles on this patch as well. I'm also going to do a patch notes review. That ended up being pretty long. I already recorded that. It was like an hour and 45 minutes. But I know people probably want to see just the tier list more so than the patch notes, so I'm going to go ahead and try to do a quicker tier list, release that today, and then maybe release the patch notes tomorrow, just so people can go ahead and get the tier list in there. But yeah, be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. If you want to help support the channel, it's just less than $0.25 a day to become a member, $5 a month. You know, it's the price of a coffee these days that you stop somewhere if you want to help support the content. But other than that, let's go ahead and get in here. Okay. So I'm just going to hit the item part of this just really quickly, and only as it pertains to the support role, as far as I see. There's not that many direct support changes, but there are a couple of changes to the items that are going to affect the tier list. So I'll just give you the quick version of this, hopefully, and then we'll get into the tier list itself. So Dawn Core, still going to be trash. Almost nobody got this item before. It's arguably even worse now because it doesn't have haste on it anymore. So I don't know what they're doing with this item, but I just really don't think you're going to buy it. It's possible you see it on enchanters as like a 4th or a 5th item, but I just don't think it's going to be used a lot. Okay, Echoes. I still think this is going to be very niche. What they've done now is they make it to where you just have to have 2 stacks. You just damage an enemy twice, and then you get the bonus healing and shielding. So the usual suspects for this type of item might still want it. Someone like a Sona, someone like a Nami. People that, you know, have spells where you can hit multiple people with spells and heal multiple people, and they have relatively short cooldowns, so they can just spam it. Although I'm not entirely sure that people are going to get this all the time, but those would probably be the usual suspects. Rakan, like, can get this, but he has so many other options. I think it would be fairly rare. But I will say that, you know, doing the 120 damage off of just a couple of things, because you can just, like, auto as Rakan, and then shield, and then auto shield, because his shield is broken up into 2 different things. It's really easy to trigger it, and with your Q, that could be decent as well. And the healing is pretty nice though, like 150. So that's, you know, if you're weaving these in and out, then that's basically every couple of auto attacks. Your shield is going to be shielding for I think it's like 140 each, and then you're getting a 150 heal on that. So that's almost double the heal and shield. So I don't know. These numbers might be strong enough where Rakan could run something like this, but it might be rare. Okay. Shrillize is getting a nerf. A lot of supports were not running this item, but champions and other roles such as Veigar, I think this is becoming pretty popular. So unfortunately, this is just a casualty of getting purchased in other lanes. They really don't like items that are under 2,500 gold to be bought in other lanes, because it just kind of messes up the econ, messes up back timings, power spikes, all that stuff. Creates a lot of asymmetry that they just don't want to see. So it's getting nerfed. Pretty niche. A lot of people are probably still not going to get it. I think it hasn't been nearly as good after the change to where it no longer gives the passive speed every time you heal and shield a little bit. So, anyways, probably not going to see it a ton. Maybe still on those niche champs. I don't know. Okay, Anathema's getting removed. It was a pretty niche item. Not a lot of people got it anyways. I don't think it's going to affect the meta that much. Warmogs. This is interesting because it is 1,000 health. I think it's 3,100 gold. So, you know, you're basically getting about 2,700 gold worth of value. So, and this, I think it also has 5% movement speed. So, for 300 gold, you're getting 5% movement speed, 100% health regen, which I think 100% health regen is 300 anyways. It's pretty close. So you're getting the movement speed for free, effectively, and you're getting that Warmog passive. And just this plus your Atlas item when it's upgraded, plus like your scaling health runes, is enough to give you that bonus. So there might be some champs that want this, that take a lot of damage and can get out of combat pretty quickly and then go back in, and who have really good health scaling. Thinking like maybe Tom Kench. If you just, you know, you're hanging out in the back protecting, maybe you go in at the start, you W, you knock somebody up, you take a bunch of damage, you shield with your gray skin, and then you walk out, you wait a little bit, you heal back up, then you could go back in. while you're waiting on your W cooldown anyways. I don't know. So probably not a lot of champs are going to want this, but there might be some champs that want something like this. Maybe Braum too if you're hanging out in the back peeling. Or if you're specifically against a huge poke comp, it's possible. So I think it's more like you would see this on like something like Sejuani. That's classically the types of champs that have bought this, but I don't know if you're even going to see it then. But it's cool they're paying attention to it, buffing it up. Thimble Winter. Now this item is pretty nuts. I realized this in my patch notes video that it's got 550 health base. Let me just pull it up real quick. A lot of people probably sleeping on this item, and I mean, I have been too, but it does give you like a pretty crazy shield. So if you have like 1,000 mana or so, this plus, you know, just Frozen Heart or just this is going to give you pretty close to 1,000 mana, especially with your base mana, it will be over 1,000. Then, I mean, you're looking at a, you know, maybe in the mid game, 140 plus 45 or so. It's about a 200 shield, and then you're getting 80% more. So about a 280 or 360 shield. So probably between like a 300 to 400 shield on average. That's pretty massive. And you can trigger it more than once in a fight. I think it's, what, 8-second cooldown. So you can trigger it fairly often. And just a slow triggers this too. Now, all the mana is a little bit goofy, but if you just look at the stat efficiency of this, even taking out the mana, the 1,200 gold, then it's still 2,500 gold, even with 0 mana, as far as like the amount of stats that you're getting on it. So it's pretty wild. It can get to like 750 health, 15 ability haste. It's got the mana, and it's got that shield. So I don't know that everybody's going to want that. Obviously, Tarek likes this, but I'm not sure who else. I mean, would Rakan like it? Maybe. There's just not that many other champs that need that much like mana. Maybe like Nautilus or something if you're maxing E and just spamming it in fights. It's possible. It's definitely interesting. So we'll see. Obviously, Sona likes Tyr, but I think she would probably still rather go for Archangels. So I don't know. There might be some interesting builds out there with it, but I still don't think it's going to impact the meta too much. Although it is very tempting to try to build something with it, just because those stats are pretty efficient. But it doesn't do anything to help your allies. So it's cute, but most champs just don't need the mana. Bottom line, you can get a lot of HP, you know, fairly cheap for it. So again, it's possible. Maybe something like a Tom Kench actually would like something like that. He doesn't need the mana, but having that shield and going in, and he scales so well with health, possibly. Maybe something like a Sejuani. I think she's pretty mana intensive if you try to run her as support, which most people don't. So I don't know. Maybe there's some weird cases, but it probably won't shake up the overall meta too much. Cinder, Hall, Radius, Sunfire, all this stuff's not really for supports. Randuin's Omen, you get more armor, but it's getting rid of the rock solid. So if you like to buy Frozen Heart plus Randuin's, this is probably a good thing for you, but if you're just getting one of them, I think it's a downgrade. You do get a bigger slow, but it's a much longer cooldown, and you're losing a little bit of health. I think it's probably not going to matter. Most people don't get this item, but against like a bunch of critical strike champs, this could still be like a decent buy, but I think it'll be really niche. Abyssal Mask, I think this is a pretty big buff overall. You are losing a little bit of magic resist, but now you're just getting a flat minus 20 magic resist, and you don't have to have that much health with this item. So before, it shredded a flat amount of magic based on how much bonus health you had. So you kind of felt like you had to get a lot of bonus health in order to make this worth it. And I'm not sure what the breakpoint was on the bonus health. I think you needed like definitely north of 1,000, probably closer to 1,500 to cap out at the 25 magic resist. But with this, you can just, you know, slot this in if you want, even on like an enchanter or something. If you want that little bit of curse and you want some protection, you just need a magic resist item. You think you're going to get blown up. It can be pretty good. So now it's cheaper. It's less magic resist. You get more magic per champion, but the radius is also bigger. So now it's 600 rather than 550. So it's pretty good. So I think this is a really good item. I think it'll be the go-to as a support if you want magic resist. So Yeah, I think it's pretty solid. Knight's Vow, armor is going down a little bit, but now the damage is reduced by the knight, so it's still pre-mitigation damage that gets moved over to you. So this 12%, if they were going to take 100 damage, 12 of it would move over to you. But before, you would just take that full 12 damage, versus now it actually checks your armor and magic resist. So if you have like 100 armor and you're going to take 12 physical damage, then it would get reduced by 50%. You'd only take 6. So this means you're going to be taking a lot less damage. So if your ally has, you know, something like 2,000 health and 100 armor, and they're trying to kill them, then they effectively have 4,000 HP against physical, because it's going to be reduced by armor. But now, you know, if you're taking all that damage, you're taking 12% of that all the way down, then that would normally be like 480 health you'd be taking. But if you have the 50% reduction, then it's going to drop by 50% down to 240. So I think it's pretty good. It will save you, you know, in especially some of those long drawn out fights, hundreds of health effectively. So this might as well read that it's giving you like 200 extra health on the item because of this change. I think a lot of people probably aren't going to talk about that, but that's pretty significant. It is blocking a little bit less damage overall, right? So if they're under 30%, it was blocking 20. If they're over, it was blocking 10. So now they're just flatlining it at 12%, which I don't know mathematically. That's pretty close to being what the average would be if they went from 100 to 0 steadily. I think it would be like 12 or 13% based on the difference between 10 and 20% weighted at only 30% max health. So I think this is just more consistent, but it's about the same if they went from 100 to 0. And you get base health regen. So this is not a great stat later on in the game, but early on, if you want to rush a Knight's Vow, and there are some lanes where that could be an option on some champs. If you want to rush Knight's Vow, then now you have a health regen item, which is nice if you're against poke champions. You just want to rejuve beat anyways, or you can just hold it for a while, and that can help you sustain through some troublesome lanes. So yeah, pretty nice upgrade, I think, to Knight's Vow, which was already a premier item. And then Zeke's is getting a little bit more health. It's getting less armor, but it's also getting magic resist, so that's a pretty good trade-off probably. And then it's getting a little bit less ability haste, which is kind of whatever, and it's losing the mana. So overall, I think this is a huge buff. It's very similar to the same stats on Locket. It just Locket has 5 more armor, 5 more magic resist, and this has 100 more health. So I think technically gold-wise, Locket is a little... Actually, no. This one might be a little ahead, but it's very, very similar. It's negligible, the difference in those two. So now you get to choose, okay, do you want the AoE shield off of Locket, or do you want the offensive slow and the little bit of extra damage off of Zeke's? So I think that's handy. Or do you just want both, and you just want, you know, well-rounded damage for your first item on Zeke's, and second item is Locket for more well-rounded resists, I should say, and the shield. So overall, I think that's pretty good. It just, you're going for the effect a little bit more than you're going for the weird stat differentials. Mage items not applying to support that much. I will say something like the Faded Ashes is very good for AP junglers, so you're seeing a lot of AP champs in the jungle, which is going to make AP supports, I think, a little bit weaker if you start seeing AP junglers everywhere, which I think Faded Ashes, we're starting to see that. So that does hurt AP supports a little bit, because then you're just going to be too exposed to magic resist, I think, if you go in AP support and like a heavy AP jungler. Maybe not, it depends on the comp, but that's just something to keep in mind. But yeah, this is not going to affect the support meta that much. Leandries is still around. You can try to get Blackfire Torch plus Leandries on someone like a Brand or a Zyra. And I haven't run the numbers on that. I don't know. Both of those champs like Rylai's as well, just for the utility. I think you probably still... Leandries is going to do more damage, I believe. But I don't know. Maybe there's a world where you get both of those instead. You're going to be really squishy, though, because this has no HP on it. So I don't think a lot of supports will probably want that, but it's possible. Fighter items, I don't think people are going to use this. On hit champs, I believe we're in a pretty weak state right now overall. The nerf to Blade the Rune King is pretty massive. It does a lot less damage as range now, especially the interactions with Gensus and Randuins. It's pretty bad, so I think your crit ADCs are going to be probably where you want to be right now. Black Cleaver, a little buff. Supports don't get it, so that's good. Plated steel caps going down to 1,000 gold, which is nice. It's getting a little bit more armor, so that's basically 200 gold savings here. Effectively, you're literally saving 100 gold, and you're getting 100 extra gold worth of armor, but you're losing the attack damage reduction. So now those auto attacks are going to do more damage, and I believe that reduction came in after damage reduction was applied. I'd have to look it up and see. But like, if you were gonna get dealt 100 physical damage, you had 100 armor, it would drop it down to 50, and then it would reduce it off of that. So then it's gonna take 12% of the 50, I think, and block that. So it's going down to 8% now. So I mean, that adds up, that matters. So in that scenario, I guess what would 12% of that be of 50, something like 7 damage block versus 8% is going to be like 4. So it'd be blocking 3 more damage, and then does 5 extra armor block 3 damage? I don't think so. But the armor is also a lot better against like spells. This is only basic attacks. So if you're getting hit by assassins or, you know, poke or Ezreal Qs or whatever, this is actually going to be better. So I don't know. People are saying this is pretty terrible, like these changes, but I still think it's pretty good. It's only if you're going to be consistently just eating auto attacks over and over and over again that Plated Steel Caps is going to be better. Most supports don't want this item most of the time. It's a lot easier to get a ton of armor than it is magic resist, something that's like Frozen Heart. But I don't know. Abyssal Mask is pretty good too. You could go Plated Abyssal. But I still think it's viable. I think people are just overblowing just how much of a nerf this is. I think it's probably still pretty good. Again, especially if they don't have a lot of auto attackers and you just want the armor. Boots mobility, gone. Okay, so this is going to hurt like your Blitzcranks a little bit, although I still think he's going to be really good. And maybe like Alistar, who wants to roam around. Excuse me. You know, drink there. But they're pretty degenerate. You just rush this and just leave the lane and completely roam around. That does open up some interesting macro plays, but it's kind of a frustrating playstyle. You're just sort of leaving bot lane on an island. That's not a good experience in solo queue, especially just early game, constantly roaming. And it's really annoying for mid lane to deal with that too. So it does put a unique kind of pressure on the map, but it does it so well with mobility boost. People can just be there so quickly. And not a lot of champs were getting it right now. It was just pretty degenerate in some specific circumstances. So I think that's probably fine to take it out. I mean, I think it was fine. I don't think you needed to take it out, but it's fine. Symbiotic Souls, this is supposed to be the replacement. It's like a late game mobility boost. It comes with an empowered recall. I don't know how long it takes to walk 1,500 units, but I'm imagining quite a while, and they're going to be absolutely horrible before then. And it's not a specific time where it unlocks. You have to actually hold it for that long. So I just think they're going to be terrible and no one's going to buy them. But I could be wrong. It's designed, I believe, for like top lane split pushers. But we'll see. Okay, Marksman items. The TLDR here, like, Bloodthirster is worse. I don't think most people are going to get that. Collector is way better. So it's got 5 more AD and 5% more critical strike. It's losing 1 lethality, which is kind of whatever. But these buffs right here, that's like 175 gold for the attack damage and 200 gold for the critical strike. So that's like 375 extra stats for only 100 gold more. This is like 30. So I guess it's like 350-ish, 345. So, Collector, very good. Getting 10% extra cost efficiency out of that effectively. Essence Reaver is trash. They took off the Spellblade. They, messed around with the stats, but in general, most people wanted this for the Sheen proc. So, I think it's going to be really bad. I could be wrong. There could be some champs that like it this way. Maybe Xayah. you know, prefer something like the crit chance, the haste, all that, but I think there are probably better options. Immortal Shield Bow, a lot of people still probably aren't going to use this. It does have a bit more AD, a bit more crit, but they're taking off the lifesteal. So, probably a niche item, maybe third or fourth. The big headliner that everybody's going to be talking about is Infinity Edge. This is just an insane buff. So you're getting 5% extra crit, that's 200 gold, and you're getting 15 additional AD, which I think is like 50 or maybe 550 gold. It's something like that. So you're getting like 750 gold worth of stats. Is that right? I always have to like double check. So I'm like, there's no way that's correct. Pull this calculator over here for you. So we've got 35 gold for an AD times 15. That's right. It's 525 plus 200. So that's 725 gold worth of extra value on that item for 100 extra gold. It is nuts. Like they say they wanted to put more power into it. It was already a fine item. It's like a third item, but my god, it's just crazy. Like anyone that can use Infinity Edge early like has to buy that item. It's just absurdly strong. They're taking Kerchai Shard out of the game. And so that on the surface makes enchanters look better, but we'll talk about that when we get in there. I think some enchanters will be good, but I still think Engage is going to be good too. Kraken Slayer, it's made for on-hit champs now. Doesn't have crit on it. I think it's a lot worse. I just feel like a lot of people aren't gonna use this item. Maybe I'm wrong, but like your Ginsu users might still want to do it. It's the on-hit people, and they'll probably get this instead of Blade the Ruined King, I would guess, since Blade got nerfed so hard. But we'll see. Lord Doms, more pen, more crit, more AD, but it's hard to put a number on the Giant Slayer. So I think against squishier targets, this is probably going to be better. But against heavier tank targets, this might be worse. I don't know. That's 175. So that's 375. I don't know what armor pin is. I think it's 40 each. So it's probably like 575 stats-ish for losing Giant Slayer. So we'll see. That's a lot of upfront stats. I think it'll be similar. You'll still buy it in the same situations. I think it'll give out a similar amount of power. Mercurial Scimitar, nobody's going to get this probably. Now it doesn't have crit, so they're definitely not going to get it. It's got lifesteal, but like, who cares? You're not rushing this item. I think lifesteal is really most valuable during the laning phase, and after that, it's kind of whatever in most matchups. Mortal Reminder, crit strike is up. Still going to be a rare buy. Navori Flicker Blades. So they're getting rid of crit on this item. No, it still has crit. Okay. Wait, really? What are they getting rid of? AD? Okay. They're getting rid of 65 AD off of this item. That's thousands of gold. I mean, attack speed is worth 30 now because they're changing dagger around, so that's 1,200 gold, but you're losing like 2,000 gold there, and ability haste is worth 50 each now, which I didn't realize that. So that's pretty crazy. So that's 750 gold worth of ability haste. So you're losing like 2,800 gold worth of stats. Some crazy number. Maybe it's not that high. 2,600. Some nutty number. Let's just look since we got the calculator here. 65, and I know we got to get into the actual thing here. So that's 2275 plus, it's even higher than I thought, plus 750 for losing that. So you're losing 3,000 gold worth of stats off this thing. And you're gaining 200, 1,200. So that's 1,400. And you're gaining movement speed, which I think is like 40 each. Might be more than that. But you're gaining like, I don't know, 1,700, 1,800 gold back. So you're losing 1,200 gold on this. And you're getting 700 here. So you're losing somewhere between like 500 to 750 gold worth of action on this item. So that's pretty catastrophic. I just don't think anyone's going to get this item. Noon Quiver now has 20% crit strike chance, but doesn't do bonus damage to monsters. That's a huge win. I mean, that's like 800 gold worth of stats for a little bit less consistency on last hitting. Phantom Dancer is losing 20 attack damage, so that's 750 gold-ish, something like that. it's gaining this attack speed, but you got this anyways if you ramped up. You just don't have to ramp anymore. You get a little bit of movement speed, a little bit of critical strike. So, again, you're losing hundreds of gold here. And you're only saving 200. So I'm pretty sure this is just a massive nerf. Rapid fire cannon. You're losing 1,000 gold worth of stats. A little bit more than 1,000 gold worth of stats for... and you're getting a little bit of crit. 400 gold cheaper. And a little bit of attack speed. So you're gaining... 15 attack speeds, what? 300? No. 450 gold. 650 gold, 1,050 gold. That might actually be cost neutral. That's about cost neutral. So this is the least bad of the changes so far to these Zeal items. And people really like it for the empowered attack, obviously. Hurricane, now this is one that's actually pretty interesting. So the on hits were 25 each, so that's, you know, whatever that number is, 700 goldish on hit damage, but your bolt damage is doing more, 15% more, and those bolts, the AD portion can crit. The on hit can't crit. So if you already have a lot of crit in your build, especially if you have Infinity Edge where it's getting the bonus damage to crit, this might actually be a pretty big buff, potentially. So definitely if you have 200 AD, I think it's going to be a buff, but it doesn't have any AD itself, so that would be like a third item or something. You'd be really start popping off, but I think at 3+ items, this is going to scale to be better. Second item, I'm not sure. If you on phone like Jinx, you go Infinity Edge, and then this thing, I'm not sure how that's going to work, but as third, or if you go Infinity Edge, this item, then Lord Doms, or something like that, maybe it's going to be better. Or the new bleed item. So I think champions that want to run Rune into Hurricane, so like Jinx, Twitch, those types of champs also have crit builds that are really good. So like Twitch can go crit, which is still pretty strong. And Twitch, I think, gets extra AD when he pops his ult too. So that's going to do even more damage on these bolts. So this is pretty good. This is sleeper. I think a lot more champs are going to consider this item now. Because it's not losing its AD. Did it ever have AD? It says it's losing its on hit. Yeah, it didn't have AD to begin with. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty good. And I think this is gonna be like your premier wave clear over static shiv, which they're changing, that I think is going to be trash. There might be some champs that don't care about crit that still like static shiv. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's actually pretty nice. So static shiv no longer has crit. It has more attack speed, and it has 50 AD on it, and it's way cheaper. But I think it's going to be very niche. It's going to be your non-crit champs that want this. Like, I think I saw a Kaisa build it the other day, but still seems pretty bad to me. I don't know. I guess if you need the AD to reach a certain breakpoint to evolve your Kaisa stuff, like maybe this helps you get 2 evolves faster. I'm not sure. Kaisa always has such weird builds. But I think most champs aren't going to want this. Stormrazor's gone. That's probably okay. There are some champs that get it, but I think a lot of those champs, you know, like Jhin can just rush Infinity Edge now and still be pretty good. So I think that's fine. Terminus, pretty rare item. Okay for on-hit builds. On-hit builds, I think, are a lot worse in general. I've talked about that previously, but this could still be okay in some circumstances. Maybe Voltaic Cyclist Sword, probably not going to matter. These wild arrows, I think, are going to be really good third or fourth item. When you've already got Infinity Edge, you've already got some kind of attack speed item, and then combining these with like Lord Doms, basically it does an additional 35% damage on your crits. It doesn't scale with the Infinity Edge because it's based on your total AD, not the damage of the crit itself. But it's basically like a second, like, worse Infinity Edge, effectively, right? It's AD, although 15 less AD than Infinity Edge, so a lot lower on the AD. So you would only ever get this after you've already got Infinity Edge. But then that allows you bleed for an extra 35% of the total AD. So Infinity Edge gives 50% extra damage on crits. This gives 35% extra damage on crits. And it's over 2 seconds. So if you hit them with multiple crits, I think it just rewrites it. And so it doesn't, I don't think it stacks. So I'm not sure about that one though. So yeah, it's just there's no universe where you would get this over Infinity Edge. Infinity Edge is strictly stronger, but if you want more of the same type of effect, just at a weaker output, then this is an okay item. So I think someone like Jin, for example, would probably like this later in his build. Okay, Hearthbound Axe Zephyr. Zephyr is good for like turbo late game where you're on 6 items. This could still be good, but I just don't think you're going to see it most games. Probably not going to matter. Recurve Bow, Hearthbound Axe. Recurve Bow's back to physical damage. That's good if you're running like lethality or something. Bad for mixed damage, but good if you have lethality in your build. Scout Slingshot. This is a component of several of kind of the attack speed items. It just does a little bit of extra damage in lane. I don't think it's going to matter that much. It's kind of like Kerchai Shard, but a little bit different, but similar purpose. Zeal is strong as hell now. I did the cost analysis on Zeal. It's like you get 1,500, maybe a little bit more gold for an 1,100 gold item. So Zeal is kind of nuts, and it lets you trigger Jack at all trades. We'll talk about that a little bit earlier if you want to try to go for a full Jack stack, which is kind of rare, but Zeal's popping. That item's really, really good. So you might even just want to sit on Zeal with some champs early on. Dagger is a lot weaker. So now attack speed, the dagger still costs 300, so now it's 30 gold on attack speed versus I think it was 25 before. So attack speed just got more expensive in general, and they got rid of lethal tempo, so it's going to be a lot more scarce. Summoner spells, okay, Ghost got nerfed, Downer Duration, Cleanse got nerfed. This is like really good for champions like Leona or these other like hardcore engaged champs that have a lot of CC. This is great that Cleanse is getting like nerfed that hard. So that's, you're gonna see their win rates are gonna go up a little bit off of that. Like Ashe, Leona, those are probably the 2 biggest ones that have a lot of CC that can get cleansed pretty easily. To a lesser extent, people like Rakan and Nautilus. Exhaust also getting nerfed, so this is gonna help, you know, all-in champs a little bit more. Barrier's getting buffed. It's a greedy, weird item, but the number is higher, and it's just got a little bit better by default because Exhaust got nerfed. So this is still, I think, 210 cooldown versus this is 240 now. So maybe there's situations where you want Barrier instead of Exhaust more often. It's like an ADC, but I don't know. Maybe not. Heal changed a little bit. So the big winner here, I think, is Ignite. Doesn't get changed at all, and basically everything else gets nerfed except for Barrier. So Ignite's gonna be pretty good, and this lasts longer, 2.5 seconds. So maybe this is gonna be the answer to Ignite now if you want instead of Cleanse. Okay, Predator's gone. Okay, doesn't really matter most of the time. No one used that rune. Hail of Blades. God, this just takes so long. Hail of Blades is 110% down to 80%. So Tristana, a bunch of champs that like to do this early on, are going to be nerfed. They'll probably still get it. Ingenious Hunter's gone. Most people didn't get that rune anyways. Sudden Impact getting changed. I don't think it's going to matter that much. Relentless Hunter, roaming supports, your Bard, stuff like that. Blitzcrank's going to get nerfed a little bit by this, but it's probably fine. Lethal Tempo is gone. So this means that attack speed in general is going to be a lot better. So your Ardent Sensor and your attack speed buffing supports are going to be a little bit better off of that. The ADCs that really relied on lethal tempo, the hyperscaling stuff, it's going to take them longer to come online. So there's not a really good AD rune out there anymore. You've got Press the Attack, which is okay, which we'll talk about in a second, but a lot of people are going to be going back to Fleet in a lot of cases, so that's going to give like more sustain in lane, so your poke supports are going to be a little bit weaker here as well. So people are just going to be taking lethal tempo anyways, or Fleet anyways, because there is no lethal tempo. And I think they still want to be in this tree most of the time, so again, it's going to hurt kind of your you would think it hurts the hyper carries like Jinx, but there's still going to be quite good because of the Infinity Edge buffs and things like that. It's just going to take them maybe slightly longer. They're not going to be as insanely abusive in these longer fights because of no lethal tempo, but I think it's probably good to get it out of there. It was just too strong, or they could have like nerfed it some, but okay, press the attack. So now it still triggers the same damage, but it's damage that you do, and I believe it's to everybody. So you just have to trigger press the attack on one person in a fight, 3 auto attacks. And now hitting an enemy champion with 3 consecutive attacks does this bonus damage and amplifies your damage dealt by 8% until you leave combat. So that's damage against all targets, I believe, by 8%. So you have to hit the same target 3 times, but then you get 8% more damage for the entire fight. So that's not as good as lethal tempo, but this is going to be your like super sustained damage rune. So your champs that can attack pretty fast are probably going to like that. And so, but it's only your damage. It's not everybody else. It's only you personally, but you can hit multiple targets. So it used to amplify the damage by 8% for everybody on that one target. Now it's just you on all targets for the fight. So you can trigger this on the tank that's attacking you. Then if you kill him, you can carry that buff on to, keep killing everybody else. So really good on someone like Jinx, potentially Vayne, those types of things. Overheal's been removed. I think it was pretty niche. It's fine. Absorb life. This is another thing that you can get that's just going to help you heal through some really annoying lanes. It does compete with Presence of Mind and the other Triumph. But if you're in a really annoying like double range poke lane, this is another way to sustain through it. So Fleet plus this, plus something like the new potion buff, which we'll talk about in a second, could help out a ton. Legend Tenacity is gone. So again, a lot of CC champs gonna be a lot more powerful here because they've nerfed Cleanse and they've nerfed Legend Tenacity if you're playing at home. Keeping track of this. So your Leonas, your Nautilus, Rakan to an extent. A lot of these champs are really gonna like these changes. Legend Haste, a little bit more haste if you really want that. I think haste is not amazing on a lot of ADCs, but it's okay. It's there if you want it. I still think most people are going to take Alacrity now, especially because you really, really need the attack speed so you don't have lethal tempo. And, or Bloodline. Bloodline's another option if you're against the super poke lane. Now you have 3 different things in the precision tree that can help you sustain through poke in the laning phase. Cut down now is a lot worse against high health targets. It's okay. I just don't think most people are going to get it. It's just going to be coup de grace all the time. Fleet has a little bit less healing, marginally less early on, but the movement speed duration is better later on in the game. So I think this makes it better in the mid to late game for repositioning and that type of thing, but a little bit worse in the laning phase, but probably not by a ton. Resolve Tree. Okay, so Font of Life is getting turbo nerfed. Now it just triggers once, and it just heals you and your ally for a very small amount, 70% of that for range users. The main reason that Font was so good for so long, if you never track this, is because it put a debuff on somebody, and when your allies attacked them, it counted as a heal that came from you. The reason that's important is that would trigger Ardent Sensors, Staff of Flowing Water, and other items that have functioned like that. If you heal, then X effect happens over time. That's what's made Font good. It never did a ton of healing, but it helped spread the Ardent Sensor and the Staff of Flowing Water throughout your entire team without you having to individually invest the mana and the cooldowns to put shields and heal specific people. You're just like, all right, I slow somebody, hit them with a Lulu Q, hit them with a Janna W or whatever, and then the whole team's just going to have this Ardent Sensor buff up, and then I can just prioritize putting my shields on the people that need it. But now it's going to be a lot harder to do that. So I think this is just Graveyard. Maybe, like, this is probably marginally more healing in the laning phase if you're against heavy poke champs. The main thing is your ADC doesn't have to auto them to get this. So if they are too scared to step up and auto, or it's just not safe for them or whatever, and you just hit like some kind of long range slowing thing, then you can apply this slow, and it does heal you now too. So, you know, if you're on like Tahm Kench or Braum or whatever, I guess it's okay if you do want that sustain in the laning phase for you personally, and if your ADC is just not auto-attacking, especially, again, for these melee champs, you know, every 20 seconds being able to heal for 15 HP in the laning phase is pretty good. If you're, you know, triggering that on cooldown, that's going to be, you know, 45-ish healing per minute. So it's okay, but now it's just like super early game rune that just doesn't have as much utility. So not amazing in my mind, but it's okay. You know, there aren't a lot of other great choices there either. Shield Bash is just total garbage on like 99% of champs, and Demolish is still good, but plates aren't worth as much as they used to be, so maybe you get 1 or 2 extra plates, maybe off of the Demolish proc. It just kind of depends on how the lane's going, so I think it's a pretty big nerf. Inspiration Tree. Now, this is interesting. So you've got a new rune that's cash back. Just okay, it's not great. You get 6% gold back on the purchase of a legendary item. So this is not your support item, and it's not your boots if you're a support. It's only completed big ticket items. So you're probably only going to complete 2, maybe 3 of those big ticket items. So if 2 of your items end up being like 5,000 gold total, then you would end up getting 300 gold over the course of a game. Not amazing. Not horrible, but also not amazing. It's okay. It's an okay rune. Dematerializer is gone. Just hardly very few people use this. It was pretty obnoxious. There were some cases where you would use it to gain prio for dragons and stuff. It was like really advanced macro type of stuff, so they just got rid of that. And they got rid of Futures Market, which is fine. Almost nobody used this rune. It was very niche for very specific tempo-oriented builds. It's just not a very good design. Jack of all trades. Now, this is extremely fun to theorycraft, and I've got some theorycraft for you here in just a second. I know this video is going to be extremely long, but whatever, damn it, I'm doing it. I should probably just do the Jack in a separate video, but I know you guys, a lot of people are probably toying around with this and just want to know. So I'm just going to throw it out there, sort of what I think about it so far. And I think this is going to be one of the most slept on OP runes that you need to be getting. If you're a support, like, this is extremely good if you can get it. The problem is if you get it as a secondary tree, then you're missing out on Zombie Ward and Ulti Hunter, potentially. So you either need to main tree Domination, which is pretty bad on most supports. Most supports are not going to do that. Or you need a main tree Inspiration. And you've got Glacial, which we'll talk about in a second, that could still be pretty good. And, but if you're like a lot of the kind of engaged supports, you still want to go in the Resolve tree. It is tricky because it's a very good rune, but I love Zombie Ward so much. It's just so much extra vision that's so difficult to calculate the value of that. But man, Zombie Ward is really good. And then Ulti Hunter, it's so good on so many champs. So it's difficult decisions, but I think that makes for great strategy, you know, in a game that has a lot of strategy. But this thing right here is insane. So if you get 5 stacks, you get 10 Adaptive Force, which is 200 gold value, and you get 5 Ability Haste, which is 250 gold value. So that is 450 gold value if you just get 5 stacks on this, which is 5 different stats on your items. Then you get 450 free gold. You can get this on most champs on your first back. So you can trigger this crap at like 5 minutes or something for 300 bonus gold, which is huge. Now, 10 stacks gives you 25 Adaptive Force and 10 Ability Haste. So 10 Ability Haste is 500 gold. 25 Adaptive Force, I believe, is also 500 gold. So that's 1,000 gold overall. So that's really wild once you get this. So is that right? That's, yeah, 500 and then 1,000 total. So 1,000 gold is just absolutely nutty. So how do you get these stacks, and how does that work? Well, let me explain this to you real quick. So these are all the stats, and if you look this up, the wiki actually updated yesterday when I was looking at this to tell you all the stats. So this tells you all of the things that count as stats. So it's only flatline stats that are not unique that can show up on other items. So there aren't a lot of the special stats do not count for this. Only these stats count. Now, I've got it organized in a way that I think is a little bit better, especially for supports. So there are basically 12 stats that most supports will want to get that can count towards this. You've got MP5, HP5, flat mana, flat HP, ability haste, armor, magic resist, tenacity, AP, heal, like plus healing and shielding, flat movement speed, and percentage movement speed are different stats. Other things that also count are AD, lethality, attack speed, crit, lifesteal, armor pen, magic pen flat, and magic pen percentage. So mages, I think it's probably pretty hard to trigger the full 10. Supports, I think you can definitely do it. And 80 carries, it's possible to get the full 10, but even at 5, I think it's probably a good bargain. So let me talk about it. Okay, so gold per 10 does not count as a stat, which is annoying. So your Atlas to start off with has 3 stats on it. It's going to have flat health, mana per 5, and health per 5. So it's already got 3 on it. The only boots that give you 3 stats are Mercury Treads. That's going to have flat speed, magic resist, tenacity. So that gives you 6. Then you need 4 more. I do not believe there's an item that I've seen that has 4 stats that are not already mentioned that you want on a support. Now, it's kind of like a quiz. I know people are going to go out there and look, and let me know if you can find it. But I don't believe that exists. There are items with 4 stats, but a lot of them already have a stat that you're going to be invested in to this point. So I put in blue the 6 stats that you get off of Mercury Treads plus Atlas. So the only stats that you have left to choose from, you need 4 of these. You need mana, ability, haste, armor. Okay, so you can get all 3 of those on Frozen Heart. Frozen Heart is really one of the only support items that uses Glacial Buckler now, because remember they changed Zeke's, it doesn't have flat mana on it anymore. So Glacial Buckler, as a 900 gold item, has all 3 of those. So you don't even have to complete your item to get it. You can do Glacial Buckler and then just anything else that has movement speed, heal, or AP. So you could just do an Amp Tome. Glacial Buckler plus Amp Tome, get you there. Boom, 10 stats. Or 10 stacks for that. And you can get more than 10 too. If you get more than 10, then it just gives you an extra ability haste per extra stat. It won't give you any more adaptive force, but you do get a nice little 50 gold bonus, effectively, for getting that extra ability haste point per stat. So I don't think you can find 4 of these on one singular item, but there are a lot of options that can get you there fairly quickly. And there are a couple of items that have 3. So Glacial Buckler will have 3, a completed Ardent Censer will have 3, and Staff of Flowing Water will have 3. Okay, so here are the options. So if you do the other one, so if you want to do Ninja Tabby, Sork Boots, or Berserker Greaves, you will have 5 stacks. Alright, so that means that you have to have 5 of these remaining things here. So Magic Resist gets freed up. And if you have like Ninja Tabby, Tenacity is going to get freed up, but you can't really get Tenacity any other way. So you might as well take Tenacity just off the table, and you're only going to have 11 stats to choose from if you don't go Mercury Treads. Tenacity is like a free one that you get on Mercury Treads. But you can swap out the armor for the Magic Resist, and then you've got to have 5 of the remaining ones here. Or whatever. So not only can you not get Tenacity anywhere else, is that going to get struck off, but now you need 5 instead of 4. So it does make it a lot harder, but you can do it with just 5 if you want something like Tabby instead, or like Sork Boots instead. Because Tabby's like auto attack reduction does not count as a stat. It's only the armor and the movement speed that counts. Okay, so the easiest one I think to get for most champs is Frozen Heart and then Tome. So you can do Amp Tome. You can do Forbidden Idol. That will give you the plus healing. There is no single component item that gives plus healing, so the cheapest you can get is Forbidden Idol. That will trigger it. Or you can get Moonplate. So Moonplate is the one that's probably the least weird for hard tanks. That's the one that's 800 gold, gives you some health, and gives you attack speed. But you get ripped off on this item. This item is a scam compared to other items because it overcharges you a lot for the movement speed. Most movement speed on most other items. So if you look at something like Ether Wisp, and I don't know why it's balanced, probably just because tanks are kind of strong and, you know, they don't want to put health and movement speed on the same item. But if you look at this item, like 30 ability power is 600 gold, and then you're paying 5% for 250 gold. So that's 50 gold for 1% movement speed to get that, right? But if we look at Winged Moonplate, it's 400 gold for the health, but you're paying 400 gold for 5% movement speed. So now you're paying 80 gold for each point in that. And it's a small component, so it's a total ripoff to get this item. And most items, like, it does build in a Trailblazer, which is cool, but this item has been nerfed over time quite a bit. But that is still a respectable mainstream tank item that you can get. So you could get something like Glacial, and then Moonplate, and then complete Trailblazer, and then complete Frozen Heart or whatever, and you would get the stacks if you want. So that item is kind of a ripoff, but you, with most champs, you don't have to go out of your way to get it. Rakan can comfortably get tome or item with a lot of his builds, and I think this is another reason why Rakan's going to be really good, is because he can abuse Jack better than probably anybody else, or he's certainly in the conversation. But that's basically that option for tanks. Locket, if you do Locket plus those 6, that only gives you 8. Okay, because that's only going to give you the armor and the ability haste, because you already have health off of your Atlas. So Locket only gives you 8, Zeke's only gives you 8, so you need something with 2 of those stats next. Ether Wisp gives you 2 of those stats. It gives you AP, and it gives you movement speed. So you can do Locket plus Wisp or Zeke plus Wisp. Again, this is a little odd on most champs because it's going to be AP. Now, some tanks do have AP in their build, but it's a little weird to build something like Shurelya's or Locket on, Ardent Sensor, I should say, on Leona, for example. Nautilus does have AP ratios. There are some champs that can do it. And Shurelya's is not, it should just get nerfed, but it's not the worst item in the world for an engaged tank, right? You're gonna be a little on the squishy side, so you gotta be careful with that, but it's possible, but weird. Again, Rakan can do it, though, pretty comfortably. If you open with Locket, you're already going to be pretty tanky, and then if you want to get a Shurelya's or an Ardent Sensor after that, you can do it. Okay, so these are kind of your tank options. Again, they're a little weird. Moonplate will not work on these because you already have health, and you're only going to get the movement speed. You need movement speed plus one of the other stats, and I think this is one of the only least weird ways to get it. Okay. And you also can't do like the tier item, because that's only going to give you 1 stat. It's only going to give you flat mana. I guess in theory you could just get like a tier and a Moonplate, but it starts to get really weird. If you start, this is the least weird, but there are going to be other options. Other things you can do. Ardent Sensor will give you 3, so that gets you to 9, so you just need one other thing. So if you do Ardent Sensor plus Moat, Glowing Moat, then that will get you there. So Enchanters, you know, something like a Lulu, if you just go Mercury Treads on Lulu instead of Ionians, which is not horrible, then you could pretty easily get it with that. Or a Cloth Armor. Those are probably the cheapest ways to pick it up. So you don't even need a full, like, 2-piece item. Just a single component can get you that with Ardent Sensor. Same thing with Staff of Flowing Water. You can do Staff of Flowing Water plus a Cloth Armor or an Aether Wisp. Glowing Moat will not do it because this already has ability haste on it. So this is another one that's interesting. Rakan can do that too. You can do Staff, and then if you want to be a little tankier, you can go Cloth, build the Cloth into Locket, Frozen Heart, Knight's Vow, whatever. You could do that. Or if you want to go in traditional like double enchanter stuff, then you can do Aether Wisp. So Staff into working Ardent Sensor next if you want to do something like that. Or Staff into Shurelya's. All of those could be options. Shurelya's another one that will give you 3. So it did just get nerfed, but you could go Shurelya's plus Cloth Armor or Shurelya's plus Forbidden Idol. will give it to you. So these are all like pretty reasonable support type of items. So Shirelia's Rush on your Lulu or whatever into Redemption, Ardent Sensor, whatever, is very doable. And then you've got so these are kind of like more weird options that you can do. For the AD champs, if you go Mercs, then that's pretty easy. You can go Umbral Glaive plus Dagger. That's pretty cheap. That's pretty effective. Most people love to rush Umbral and then just Dagger into whatever your next item is, and that'll get it. So it is pretty easy on like your Ashe type of champs, Senna, to get this as well. And then Malignance, all you really need is Lost Chapter. So if you just buy Lost Chapter, then you can do either Cloth Armor or Aether Wisp or Forbidden Idol. So which types of champs would want this? And I picked Malignance because it's a cheap item. It's only 2,700 gold, and it does have pretty good utility. Like, it's got the ultimate cooldown on it as well, so it really lowers the cooldown on your ults. I've tried it on Rakan. You're a little squishy with it, but it is relatively cheap. It does give you a lot of AP. He doesn't necessarily need the mana, but he has a really powerful engage ult, so that definitely can work. And it does give you some shred as well, some magic resist shred, which is cool. So it's weird, but you could do it if you want to experiment and try it out. I'm just throwing stuff out here for you guys. I think that like this stuff here is legit and it could work. You have to go slightly out of your way if you're not Rakan. For tanks, like most enchanters can probably go Ardent or Staff plus one other piece, especially Ardent plus Moat. Super common. You're going to get an ability haste item after Ardent anyways most of the time. Now, I didn't look at like super niche stuff like Sona with Archangels, for example. I don't know. So like Archangels would give you ability health, ability haste, AP, and flat mana. So that would give you 9. So Archangels plus Moat, I think would, or no, it already has ability haste plus Cloth, I think would give it to you, or Aether Wisp. Yeah. So on Sona, you could get this, and then either Aether Wisp if you want to go Ardent Sensor or Shirelia's, or Cloth Armor. Moat's not going to do it because you already have the ability haste. But yeah, that's another option that's kind of specific to Sona. So I'm sure there are other, like, again, niche, weird little things you could do. But I theorycrafted this for a couple of hours a day between conferences, my student conferences, and this is the best I could come up with. So there you go. ADC combos. This is harder to do on most ADCs. I will say Doran's gives you 3 to start with. Doran's Blades, that's a good start. You have Lifesteal, AD, flat health, so that's nice. If you go Mercury Treads, not common on a lot of ADCs, but some can do it. Samira, some other ones that don't care about the attack speed as much. Jhin can do it. He doesn't do it a lot, but you could. That'll give you 6 stacks. And then there aren't that many 4-stack combos off of just 2 items I could think of. Zeal gives you 3. So that gives you movement speed, critical strike, and attack speed. So that gives you 9. And then if you have Zeal, all you would need is either Moat, which is weird, but I did look at Moat, and that does build into a few different lethality-ish type of items. You can do Dirk, so you have to have a completed item to get lethality. That would give you 10. So you could do Zeal and Dirk. I know like Kaisa does that sometimes. Zeal plus Dirk, or at least she used to. You could turn the Dirk into like Collector, and then eventually turn Zeal into Runen's Hurricane or something. So it gets a little weird. I don't think you're going to want to do it most of the time. With Berserker Greaves, you're only going to get 5 stacks. And it's really hard to get 5 extra stats off of all of these things. I guess you could get all of these, and that would give you 5. No, because not only are you losing out on the tenacity, just like last time, now you're using attack speed in this build. So now attack speed's off the table. So this is only going to give you 4 total if you have all of them, because you're losing the attack speed stack on Zeal because you've already got it on Berserker. So you'd have to have an additional stat in here somewhere. So, again, you can play around with it. I'm sure there will be some ADC. Again, I think like Samira is maybe the best candidate because she can get mercs without trolling a lot of the time. But there aren't as many AD stats that are available as there are support stats that are weird. So, the movement speed off of Zeal, you're going to get the health. If you get some weird item that has armor and magic resist on it, or something where you're already going to get magic resist from mercs. But I don't. MP5 and HP5 are really rare. You're probably not going to get those on ADCs. Probably not going to get mana. You can get ability haste. That's what Moat will give you. You could get armor. Probably not going to get tenacity. Now, you are going to get tenacity off of mercs if you do that. AP is rare, but you could do like a Gensu or something build. Healing, you're not going to get that. You're going to have movement anyways from boots and movement speed. So anyways, this is the best I could come up with. However, so 10 stacks probably not happening with most ADCs without doing really weird stuff that's just going to mess you up. But you can get to 5 stacks pretty easily. All you have to have for that is just your Doran's Blade, boots, and a dagger. If you're going for Berserker. Boom, done. So your first back, if you have 600 gold, you can still get this very easily by just getting boots plus dagger. Or you could even just get something like Zeal. If you don't want to get boots, you could just get Zeal, and that would cover you too. Or just dagger plus crit cloak, or whatever it's called. Dagger plus crit cloak will get you there. So there's a lot of different ways you can get to 5. And 5 is still good. If we look at Jack of all trades here, that's still going to give you 6 AD and 5 ability haste. So that's still really good. That's 500 gold worth of stats off of a secondary rune, basically for free. You don't even have to do anything weird for that. And then anything else that you get is just a bonus, right? Like, you're not going to get to 10, but you get a little bit of extra ability haste. But still, that's your first back. 5 minutes in the game, you come back with 6 extra AD and some extra ability haste. That's really good. The changes as Time Warp Tonic are also incredibly powerful. It gives you 40% of the heal up front, and you get the entire potion. So the potion heals for like 120 early game, so you're going to be getting like 50 extra health off of this. So it's crazy. I've tried this. The sustain on this is nuts. Trust me, you're not going to be worried about getting poked out of lane with this. So I think you could very easily go for something like Jack of all trades and Time Warp Tonic as your 2 like secondary runes. Now you'd have to drop Gathering Storm, so that is a thing. So it's going to be worse at 20 minutes probably. But if you're really worried about the laning phase, you just want some immediate power, you want a snowball, or you want the insane healing off of Time Warp Tonic, then that's really good. You could also drop boots if you want to and do like dagger crit cloak, like I said before, if you're building a Zeal like first, or if you're trying to save up and you want to get the BF sword and you're not as worried about getting Jack of trades as early on, you could do the magical footwear. I think most people probably don't want to do that. They probably just want to buy their boots. You are completing more big ticket items, so if you complete 8,000 gold worth of items, if you get 3 big items by the end of the game, you're getting 6% back on that. That's 480 gold, so that's pretty decent over the course of a game. So I think there are good options here. Is it enough for ADC to supplant and fully replace Gathering Storm? Probably not, but maybe. It's definitely worth considering. So I'm just throwing it out there for you guys to think about, that you can get 5 stacks really easily with Jack, and you can have really insane sustain in the laning phase. If you have Fleet plus that other healing rune, if you want that, and then you're also taking these potions, like, double range is going to do nothing to you. You're never going to get pushed out of lane, and you're constantly going to be able to take trades and end up on the better end of it. So anyways, okay, well, that's it as far as just the quick review of the patch notes, almost as long as the patch notes themselves. But let's just talk about the support tier list for a little bit. We'll just make this a really long video too, I guess. But now that I set all that up, I think we can talk about the supports a little bit faster. So, Rakan, still going to be incredibly strong. I think that I would still put him S tier. Some people might put him a bit lower, but I'm telling you, man, he's the best one for Jack of Trades that I can think of. There might be, again, the enchanters, like Ardent Sensor plus one extra item is pretty good too with Jack of all trades. But the fact that he can trigger that, and he's an engaged champ, so he really leverages that ability haste to make plays, I think it's going to make him very strong. So there's a lot of builds you can do with him, obviously, to make this stuff work. I think if you want to be tanky early on, going for the Glacial plus Amp Tome is probably the best way to go to get Jack. And then you could turn that into Frozen Heart, if that makes sense. I would not personally do Moonplate. I just feel like I'm getting ripped off every time I get that item. You could do Forbidden Idol, but as your secondary, I mean, that is possible. So, and he can do some decent items with that as well. But I've just been getting Glacial and then Tome. So just rushing Merc Treads and then getting Glacial and Amp Tome. You can also do Dark Seal. If you don't want to make anything out of the Amp Tome, you just want the AP. Dark Seal is even cheaper. It's only 350 gold, and you get a little bit of extra health, which still helps you be a bit more survivable. And if you're snowballing, you can turn it into Mage Eyes. So, Dark Seal is also an option. I haven't tried these other ones as much. If you're really snowballing the lane, if you have something like a Vayne or a Jinx and you want to give them extra power, you can do Ardent Sensor. Be aware that you're going to be squishy if you do that. So you can get a Cloth Armor and then go into Ardent if you want to. You're going to have to do that anyways in order to trigger the Jack stack. It will slow down your Ardent, but you aren't quite as squishy. And you can get the little barrier thing as your support item. I'm blanking out on the name. But you can get that if you're afraid you're going to get bursted out. That could be an option. But just be aware, this is kind of your glass cannon build, and you will be squishier than you will be with most Recon builds. But if you're taking scaling health, you're going to get Mercury Treads. You can get a Cloth Armor in there too if you want to, and then go Ardent Sensor. It can still work. Staff of Foiling. So this doesn't help you out as much personally with the attack speed and the extra on-hit damage. But remember, a lot of your 80 carries are going to be trying to rush Infinity Edge now, so they're not going to have that attack speed early. And so you being able to give them that 25% attack speed is really good. Because I don't know mathematically how this works, but it feels like the attack speed is a lot better when you don't have very much of it. So the early amounts of attack speed are even stronger than if you already have a ton. So if you already have a ton, a lot of people can't attack move fast enough to keep up with that anyways, just mechanically. So they're going to drop auto attacks anyways. So I don't know statistically, again, if it matters, but I think at least from a feel, from a mechanics, from all that kind of stuff, being able to give them that extra attack speed when they're going to be missing it from lethal tempo early on is going to be helpful. Staff of Flowing Water is better for you personally because you're going to get the extra movement speed, which is really nice. But a lot of ADCs like the movement speed too, but they're not going to be getting the attack speed. They're getting AP. So if it is an ADC that has some AP ratios, like a Twitch or a Kai'Sa or something like that, that could still be pretty good, but it's a little iffier. Or you could do Shirelia's. Again, that's been nerfed a lot, but if you just want to go turbo engage, that's an option too. So he has the most options of anybody, I think. You can also just do your standard Locket or Zeke opener and then just do Wisp and eventually turn Wisp into either Shirelia's or Ardent Sensor. And that's fine. If you want to be tankier first and then give your team the buffs later, that's another option. So a lot of interesting stuff there for Rakan. And then he can leverage Glacial Augment super well too as his main tree. So he's one of the few champs that can comfortably use the AP items or the like enchanter items, because you have to get a tank item plus an enchanter type of item as well, right? You got to go Locket Wisp or Zeke Wisp or something like that to make it work, or Ardent or Staff or whatever, or Amp Tome, right? Versus Leona, Nautilus, getting Amp Tome kind of weird. You get a lot of stats, maybe it's worth it, but it's still weird. Rakan actually can get that. And he can also do Glacial Augment. So this is another thing that's going to make you a little bit squishier, but there have been builds in the past where he has gone Glacial Augment, and it worked out really well. So it did get nerfed a little bit for the slow, so it's not 30%, it's 20% now, but it still does the 15% damage reduction, which is okay. And adding that little bit of extra slow is kind of nice. So just, again, keep in mind you're going to be squishier with this build, especially like in the laning phase, you're going to be taking more damage. But the Time Warp Tonic is so strong right now that I think that makes up for the fact that you're going to be getting poked a little bit more off of without having the Guardian to block some of that poke every now and then. So anyways, he can go Glacial. He can be comfortable on Glacial. You're going to be a bit squishier, but you can play around that, especially if you open with a tank item. If you open with like a Frozen Heart or something like that, and then Amp Tome, or Glacial, Amp Tome, finish the Frozen Heart, then I think you can make up for it. I've been testing it out. It's been feeling pretty good so far. And then you probably just want to do Cash Back. You could do Hex Flash Traption. That is nice for getting the jump on people. You don't need it as much to get over walls because you can just naturally jump over walls, so I don't think you need it as much as like a Nautilus might need it, or a Blitzcrank to get like weird hook angles. But you can still get it if you want to try it out. I wouldn't do the magical footwear with him because he just really needs those boots early, especially to trigger Jack early on. You need the boots, the Mercury treads, all of that. So Cashback is okay. Again, it's about 300 gold probably most games over the course of whatever, 25 minutes. So it's not horrible. It's okay. Biscuits, I think, are garbage. I probably wouldn't do those. Now, I don't think that flat mana off of that, I was just thinking about this, would count as, because this gives you an item that gives you permanent mana, but it's not on the item. So I don't think that counts towards Jack stacks. I'm like 99% sure it doesn't. So I would do Time Warp Tonic. This just is insane sustain in the laning phase in the early game. It's really, really good. Like, it's way better than Second Wind, I think. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I feel like it's really good. Right? Your 2 potions early on are going to be giving you like 50 HP each. So it's like you're coming to lane with 100 extra HP worth of sustain. So that would take a lot of Second Wind procs to give you that. So it's really good. Obviously, it's going to fall off later. It doesn't give you the movement speed anymore. But I think it just gets you through the early game. A lot of tough double range lanes. It's nice. You can soak a lot of extra heat for your AD carry. That's good. Triple Tonic. The first 2 kind of suck on Rakan. The Elixir of Skill is very nice, but I'm not sure if it's worth it. It just depends. If you're going to have a steamroll lane and you don't think you're going to need Time Warp Tonic, you could do Triple Tonic. At level 9, when you get that extra point in your shield, your E, that is super helpful. And then, of course, Jack of all trades, the main reason that you're doing this. 1,000 gold, you can trigger this probably by 10 minutes or something in the game. It's incredibly strong. Okay, and then just your standard zombie ward, ulti hunter is where I would go. These are just so good on Rakan, you kind of got to get him. So, Rakan, still an amazing champ, I think. Blitzcrank, I still have him up here. Yes, they did nerf mobility boots, and that is a bit of a hit to him. He can still do swiftness. They kept swiftness as is. They didn't nerf those like they were previewing that they might on this patch. So that's still pretty good for him. He is a champ, actually, that could do Jack as well, right? Like, he can... If you don't want to do swiftness, you could just do Mercury treads. It's a little weird on Blitzcrank, but if that means you get an extra 15 adaptive force, that could work. Because he actually has really, really good AP ratios. Like, his ult, I think, is 100% AP ratio, and his hook is also about 100%. So he hits hard off those AP ratios. And, of course, ability haste is very good. That's more hooks. That's great for him. And he likes Frozen Heart, too, because that's going to give him a lot of mana so he can throw more hooks. So... that could be a decent thing. Mercury Treads, Glacial, Amp Tome on him could definitely work. You could also try like a Shirelia's on him. You'll be squishier, but you can run people down with that. So Shirelia's in the cloth armor. Could be an option if you want to do Jack. Now, Glacial also pretty decent. He doesn't have to have Aftershock or Guardian necessarily. So, yeah, I think you could comfortably do Jack build on Blitz too. It'd be pretty good. Now, he is pretty extreme, right? Like, if they dodge your hooks, or if they, pick a Morgana that has hands or something like that, it can be annoying to land your hooks. But I think a lot of the mainstream ADCs that are going to be really good are not going to have a lot of mobility. So your Jinx, Jhin, Twitch, you know, a lot of those champs are going to be very vulnerable to blitz hooks, right? Like your Ezreal is just doesn't exist on this patch after the nerf to Essence Reaver, where he's definitely going to be a lot worse. Lucian's still okay, but kind of niche. So yeah, a lot of champs are going to have a hard time dealing with these hooks. And especially if they're running enchanters with that. If they're running like Janna Jinx or Sona Jinx or whatever, those enchanters are extremely vulnerable to hooks too. So, and a lot of people are going to be running AP junglers to try to exploit that new Ashes. So, I think there's going to be a lot of squishy champs running around out there, and Blitz can definitely exploit those. So, still going to be a top-end pick for solo queue in my opinion. Leona. Gonna be a lot better right now than she used to be, like we talked about earlier. You're losing tenacity on a lot of things, so that's helpful. You're losing, or cleanse is getting nerfed pretty hardcore, and similar to Blitz, there's not going to be a lot of mobility. So you can open up really easily on Jinx, Twitch, Jhin, Sona, Janna, all these people. Janna's pretty good into her, but there's a lot of people where she's going to be really good. So her win rate has gone up a little bit as well. No one's really like blowing stuff away here that has like a high pick rate. Right? So Leona's at like 52%, but I think she's still pretty good. And then Sona, you know, same thing. You could try Helio with her. I don't know if it's going to be that much better, but kind of double poke. Can be good. Obviously, you need to be careful picking her into a Blitzcrank or a Leona, but she does scale extremely well. She leverages a lot of items really well. So, kind of the solo queue special, especially at gold and lower. If you're just allowed to, like, perma scale up, she can be good. She can do Jack really easily, you know, just Ardent Sensor plus whatever else, Cloth Armor, or Ardent Sensor plus Tier, right? Just get Tier into Ardent Sensor, boom, got it. So she's got a lot of builds where she can leverage Jack as well, and obviously scales super well with the AP that you get off of that and the ability haste. And then Nautilus, his win rate's not as high, but he's really highly prioed in pro. He has an extremely good kit. He can do the Mercury Treads, Frozen Heart into like Amp Tome or even Doran's Ring. He does actually have pretty good AP ratios. It is a little weird. You don't typically build a lot of AP on him. I'm not sure which AP items you would want on him. You could just sit on like a ring if you want to. It's very cheap. If you want to try to do the Jack thing, he's very good with Glacial. But there are some options on him, you know, that could be pretty good. Like, I don't know. He could go Shirelia's plus Cloth Armor. You're going to be really squishy if you do that. So, it's a little odd. You could also go Moonplate Idol, so you could get, like, Redemption on him or something, maybe. I don't know. It's obviously a bit more of a stretch with him, but you could try it out. Or just not mess with it, or just be happy with 5 Jack stacks and not try to go for the 10. But I think that he's a good Frozen Heart user, and I think that just getting 1 extra little Doran's Ring, if that means you get 15 extra, just think of it this way. You're paying 350 gold, and it's already a very cost-efficient item. I think it's over 100% efficient to begin with. Or not Doran's Ring. What the hell is that ring? Dark Seal. Yeah, its base stats are already 123 gold efficiency. So just think, okay, if I get to 10 stacks, I get 15 more ability power on this item, right? So then that's going to be an extra 300 gold on this item. So instead of being 433 value, and you're also getting, you know, 1 extra ability haste on that. So that's an extra 50, so an extra 400 gold on this. So you're getting 833 divided by 350. You're getting 238% gold value on this item. So yes, it's a little odd, but he does have good AP ratios on his abilities, and you can scale with it if you get any stacks. That's just bonus. Like, that's extra, right? If it's fully stacked, it's 352% efficient. So I don't know if you'd want to go Mage Eyes on him, maybe, but you could just sit on Doran's Ring on him, and I think that would be fine. Even with 0 stacks, it would be an insanely good value if you finish up Jack, and you already want Frozen Heart anyways probably on him, so why not? Like, it seems good to me. But yeah, Nautilus, as always, really good engage. Is a little bit on the squishier side. Can't hook over walls, as usual, but very difficult to dodge. Ultimate. Not a lot of mobility out there, like we just talked about. Just like with Blitzcrank, so it's going to be way easier to hit your hooks. So, I think he's really strong. Melio, good protector champ. Adds that extra range in there, which is very good with things like Jinx, Jin, that type of stuff. Really good pressure in the early game with Aerie plus your W plus 2 shields, so you can really go up and pressure. And if you want to do the potions, you can leverage that pretty well. So I think he could be pretty good, and he can comfortably do, you know, an Ardent Sensor. He likes that anyways because his W and his E trigger it. His ult can put it on the whole team. So Ardent Sensor plus, you know, Glowing Moat could be a really good build on him. Sensor into Redemption or something like that. Or Shirelia's, he likes that too. Shirelia's into Idol, into either Redemption or Ardent Sensor. There's a lot of really good builds on him. Now, he doesn't leverage Glacial Augment as well, so it'd be a little awkward to take that on him. You'd have to hit your Q to trigger it, which is possible. Just a little weird. Honestly, I've never tried it, but it just strikes me as a little weird. And you do really want Aerie on him. So if you want Jack, you're probably going to have to give up Zombie Ward and Ulti Hunter. He doesn't need Ulti Hunter as much because you're not using your ult proactively. You're just kind of sitting on it, waiting for a good opportunity. You're not trying to make a play every time it's off cooldown like you are with someone like Rakan or Nautilus. So you can maybe afford to drop the Ulti Hunter Zombie Ward and just go for the Potions Jack as your secondaries. Then you can be turbo aggressive in lane because now you're going to get the insane amount of extra healing off of the Potion Rune. So that could be a very nice way to be aggressive, to kind of power through the early laning phase, pick up your Jack really quickly, and then just snowball later on into the game. So his win rate is usually a little bit lower than most of the other enchanters out there. I think that he is a little bit harder to play than some of the other ones. But if you play him well, I think that he is very, very good, especially now that, again, Cleanse got nerfed and the Tenacity rune got taken out. So that makes his Cleanse that much more valuable. So, really good champ, in my opinion. Janna, still going to be really good. Now, she can use Glacial pretty comfortably because she has her Q that can trigger it, and her ult can also trigger it. So she's got a backup plan if she doesn't hit the Q to get the Glacial triggered, get some value out of that. She's another one that can comfortably do something like an Ardent plus Moat very easily, or Shirelia's plus Forbidden Idol. So she's a Jack user, has really good AP ratios, very good at peeling and protecting things like your Jinx, your Jin, your Twitch. The only problem is she is very vulnerable to hook type of champions. So she can peel a Leona and Rakan pretty easily, but Blitzcrank and Nautilus, especially Blitzcrank, she's going to struggle with a little bit more. Nautilus may not be able to put out enough damage to really punish her, or somebody else if they get hooked, but Blitz definitely can. So I expect Janna to still be quite strong on this patch. The other, I think peeler tanks are pretty good right now. Now you have to be careful because they're not amazing into the top end enchanters, so I think they have a bad matchup into like Sona and Janna because you just can't threaten them as easily in the early game, and they're typically going to outscale you, especially with the Jack stacks, Ardent Sensor, all that kind of stuff. So you got to be careful. They're a little bit matchup dependent, but they are good against engaged champs. Other engaged champs, like blitz hooking them is still not great, but it's better than blitz hooking Janna most of the time, or Nautilus. So they're a lot more durable. They're better against assassins. They're better at tanking. Towers, Baron, whatever you need to tank. And Tahm Kench actually can engage if you hit your W, so it's pretty reasonable to engage and to get aggressive with Tahm early on. You could try out the new Warmogs on him. I was also trying out the item that does the extra damage per auto attack based on your max health. But his auto attacks and his Q do a ton of extra damage based on his max health. So that's something worth considering. I talked also about Fimble Winner maybe being an option on him. It seems really odd. I've never seen a Rakan do that. But it's pretty big buffs, especially if you do like Frozen Heart Fimble Winner. You're going to be getting some big shields, like 400 plus shields off of that thing. you're just gonna have a ton of health. Now it doesn't protect your ally as much, but with Tahm Kench and his ult, usually you can protect the ally pretty well with just your ultimate. If they're super heavy reliant on CC. And like I talked about with Melio, because Cleanse is a lot weaker, because you don't have Legend Tenacity anymore, then being able to get people out of CC is definitely going to be at a premium. So you could do a traditional Glacial and then throw a Dark Seal on him, just like I was talking about with some of the other tanks, and he does have pretty good AP ratios as well. So that's totally possible if you want to rush Frozen Heart and do the Jack thing. Glacial is okay on him because he does apply a slow pretty frequently with his Q. So he doesn't have hard CC, but he does have a slow. I mean, you can ult them, the enemy, for hard CC, but usually you save that for allies. I guess you have your W knockup too. So he does have quite a few ways to trigger it. So he can be a Glacial user, or kind of like Melia, you don't necessarily have to have Ulti Hunter with him because you're not using it proactively, you're using it reactively. So you would have the option, if you still want to go down the Guardian tree, pick up Second Wind and all that stuff, then you could also get potions plus Jack in the Inspiration tree, and that's going to make you like incredibly resistant to poke, because you're going to have Second Wind. Now you can do the new font if you want to heal yourself and your ally. You're going to have Guardian to block stuff. You're going to be getting the extra max health off of the bottom thing in the green tree. And then you've got his gray skin. You've got his Q, which heals people. You've got the potion, which heals you. You've got the potions extra healing now. So he's just going to be like an immovable object in lane if you go for that build. So yeah, really, really good against these annoying double poke all-in lanes, like your Ashe Varus crap or like your Xerath Jhin type of stuff. You're going to be really resistant to that in the early game. And then Braum, similar to what I just said for Tom, he protects really well. He doesn't get people out of CC, but he does block a lot of range damage. And he is pretty good at blocking hooks with his shield early on. I think the shield, doesn't it block the first... I think it just blocks the first instance of damage, so you can still get hooked off of that, but it will block some damage. But Braum's very good. Lots of good team fight CC, extremely good early game, nice stats. You could probably just do the Glacial Doran's Ring. Now, he doesn't have as much like AP ratios. I think are pretty weak to possibly non-existent. I think his ult might have a small one. So Dark Seal, not quite as good, but it doesn't matter. You're only spending 350 gold to get the Jack of all trades. You're not getting as much value out of the Adaptive Force as some of these other champs that have better AP ratios. So I don't know that you have to go Jack on him, but it is, a potential option. And then Taric, the Fimble winner, and this is pretty much going to be it. I don't want this to be longer than an hour and a half. But Taric can be okay in the right matchups. He can still peel and protect. It does take a while for his ult to go off, and he is fairly short range. At least Braum and Tom do have more poke in the laning phase with their kind of longer range Qs. But Taric can still be extremely strong, especially if they have a lot of AD. You're going to get a lot of value of that extra armor that he runs. So decent choice. Nami, I'm not sure how useful Helia is going to be on her. Typically, she likes to go Mandate, so she's not going to be great with Jack because Mandate doesn't give out as many unique stats as some of the other options. So Jack's probably not as good on her. But that's okay. You can still run Helia and just sort of your usual suite of items if you want. I guess you could still run like Shirelia's on her, and then Shirelia's... What do you name Shirelia's? Was it Moat? Idol. She doesn't get a lot of idol stuff. I mean, I guess you could get Ardent Censer plus Moat, and then turn Moat into like a Mandate or something, or just skip Mandate and do something else. So it's getting a little convoluted with her, but I'm not sure just how necessary Mandate is with her. I know it's extremely good on her, but anyways, obviously going to be good with Lucian. I'm not sure about the other champs. You'll have to test it out and see with Helia and all that, but still probably decent. Pyke can go Umbral plus whatever, plus Dagger. I don't know what you would turn the Dagger into. You could also get a Cloth Armor or something if you want. Back in the day, he did get Frozen Heart. I think that's a bad build on him now. Possibly, but you could go Glacial into just Sword, just Longsword, and that would also trigger it. I didn't put that there as an option. That's kind of weird. Not a lot of champs would do that, but Pike in the past did get frozen, but his stats were very different, and you could go tank Pikes. I don't know if that's just like bad these days or what, but he has options. If you wanted to go Jack, you don't have to do it. You can still just do your Umbral, do your thing. There's a lot of squishy champs out there that are going to be immobile, like we've talked about a ton, so you can land your Pike hooks and probably blow them up pretty easily now. You do have options to sustain through a lot of the poke. He already has really good options with his gray health mechanic, but you could get even more if you did want to get the potions early on. That could be helpful. Renata, I think she likes Shirelia's. It is getting nerfed, but she does have a like sort of engage you can do with her. Obviously, on someone like a Jinx, if you can get those resets off of your W, your zombie thing or whatever, and bring people back to life, that's incredibly powerful. So she is good anti-poke. She's great at sort of early game pressure, which is her auto attack spam and her shields. So can be a pretty good champ. I think that, again, either Shirelia's or Ardent are both good buys on her, and you just need one other small item to trigger Jack. And I think Mercury Treads is fine for her. I don't think she has to go Sork Boots or anything. So she could be a good option. Honestly, I haven't played her or played against her a lot. I know she was getting played in Pro some, although I'm not like 100% about her win rate, but I think she's pretty good. So probably a good champ. I'm just not sure exactly where you want it. People usually put her with Callista. I think Callista is going to be a lot worse on this patch as an ADC with the nerf to lethal tempo and some of the others, and Hail of Blades. But Renata's probably still okay. Lulu, very good with the on-hit champs, your Kog'Maws, that type of stuff. Kog is going to be a lot worse, I think, but still going to be good with Jinx, still going to be good with Twitch, the classic. She loves to go Ardent Sensor, that's one of her favorites. Usually she goes Ionians, but Mercs would be fine if you want to try to go for that with Jack. So you could very easily go Ardent Sensor into Moat, and then go Moat into either Redemption or Staff of Flowing Water or whatever. So ton of different options there with her, or Ardent into Shirelia's if you want to do that. Moat would build into Shirelia's as well. So a lot of good options there. Really nice if you can make it through the laning phase. If you get the potions, it's good. Now, she also does not like Glacial Augment. There's not a lot of great ways to trigger that for her, I don't think. I believe the Q slows is it let me see. I think it slows trigger it, right? Glacial, or is it hard CC? I believe slows trigger it too, right? No, it has to be an immobilize. Okay. So yeah, you definitely don't want that on Tom Kench then. I was thinking a slow would trigger it for some reason. So it has to be an immobilize. So yeah, actually the her polymorph doesn't count, because I remember trying this on her before. Polymorph actually does not count as immobilization because they can still walk around even though they're polymorph. So yeah, you'd have to get it secondary. The good news is, just like Melio, just like a lot of these other enchanters, your ult is reactive rather than proactive, so you're not missing out on as much opportunity by not taking the ulti hunter. So you could still go for, I assume, Airy, down the blue tree, and then get Jack of all trades and Potion. Potion will help you get through a lot of the problems in the laning phase. Conversely, you could also go Guardian. I don't know if that'd be 100% amazing or what, but you could still do Font. That does trigger off of slow. So you could have Font, Second Wind, Potion buff, Guardian block, and you'd get Revitalize out of that as well. So that's a lot of sustain. Because historically, that's a big problem with Lulu, is that she's kind of short range, and she can get blown up a lot by poke early on in the laning phase, because her trading options just aren't as great as some of the other ones out there. But now maybe she can sustain through the lane, and you can still heal up the Twitch and things like that with Font, potentially. And now Twitch can take a whole bunch of sustain stuff too, with Fleet and all that. He probably wants press the attack, but you could get the sustain, off of minions, the lifesteal rune. He could take Potion and Jack as well if he wants to get through the laning phase. So that could help her out quite a bit. Thresh is sort of popular right now. I haven't really theory crafted him. He's another weird one that can do a lot of interesting stuff. So he could also go Glacial into Ring if you want to. He has pretty decent AP ratios on most of his stuff. Or you could go for just the Aether Wisp build is kind of weird. probably if you want to go Jack on him, it'd be Glacial into Dark Seal. Obviously, Mercury Treads are good on him. He does like Ionians a lot, but Mercury Treads are still pretty good. But anyways, okay, that's going to be it. I really need to finish this. So, a lot of different changes. I'm sure there will be a lot of stuff that I didn't think of that's going to show up. Sorry, again, it took like an hour to go through all the things, but a lot of those item changes inform what I think some of the best builds are going to be and just how the meta is going to shift around. So, hopefully that helped out. But other than that, thank you very much. Have a good day, and we'll see everybody next time.